All right, great. And we are live. So, hello everyone. Um, I think I can see you if you put some things in the chat. So, I have Kristin Lane with us today. Kristin was on the last Elisha Space podcast, and we talked about in this taping, we talked about um, navigating menopause and mental wellness. It was more specifically for women. And I thought this was like a really important topic to cover when I did the show because there's not that much information out there. And the information that is out there regarding women's health, it seems, I want to be kind. It seems like the blame is on the woman, like something is wrong with you. You know what I mean? Like, one of the old adage or one of the old things were like, oh, well, she's moody because she's on her period, that kind of thing. That's what it felt like. Oh, well, she's this because like, you know, not not realizing this is a biological situation, that's happening. Not honoring where this person is at in their life and that their body is adjusting to this. So I welcome you and we can just get started and chit chat, Kristin. It's all good.
Great.
So you were saying that you had a conversation with another person and she was just feeling blah, pretty much, you were saying?
Yeah. So, and it's not uncommon to my own experience in terms of gaining weight, feeling unhappy
Bloated.
in my life. I mean, that's putting it mildly. I mean, my waist went rogue, went on its own.
Right.
And grew, 8 inches. But I digress about my own thing. And I was recently speaking to a woman, and she's a hectic caretaker and mom.
Mm-hmm.
And she was experiencing not just physical symptoms, but emotional symptoms. And she admitted to me, she just felt broken. And it's this, it's very disorienting at times, taking stock of all of these different ways that you feel and just not having the ability to slow down in your life because there's so much expected of you. And I think go ahead.
No, go ahead. I'm listening.
I was going to say, I think that the emotional symptoms sometimes make it difficult to keep up and maintain a positive outlook on our full plate of responsibility. So in some ways it can kind of be a lose-lose for women as we're going through these stages, I think.
I kind of feel like, now people are just becoming more aware as to what is evolving for women within their bodies and giving them somewhat space. Like this is really like an awakening, if you want to call it that, for women to realize, okay, this is normal, because a lot of times we're not even given the space to think this is normal, like something is wrong with you,
Yeah. I think that
get it together.
That feeling comes from a lack of information. As a woman of early 50s, I really wasn't prepared to expect anything but hot flashes. And so it wasn't until I educated myself and dug into the subject that I realized the mood alterations are just as much part of the perimenopause experience leading into it. And, once I started to understand more about mood swings, increasing rates of depression, anxiety, particularly, that was a big one for me. And I had never had to deal with anxiety previously in my life. So it kind of was, for me, increasing slowly over time. And then once I did have a physical symptom, a hot flash, and then started to seek treatment, which was my choice. And things started to shift because of the treatment I was getting. It was kind of an eye-opener as to how long I had kind of been suffering the emotional symptoms and thinking, these are signs of depression. I was being prescribed antidepressants, which is a very typical first step, I think, for a lot of women. And then you kind of realize, wow, there was this whole other realm of symptoms that I was just completely unprepared for. And because you don't know what you don't know, I mean, particularly if you're a woman who is a high achiever, you're just kind of like, what is wrong with me?
What would you say were some things you were unaware of?
Increase in presence of anxiety, increase in depression, mood swings, irritability. Those things really started to become ever present in my life. And I think, as humans, we sometimes have a ability, and you could speak to this, about confirming the biases that we have in our mind. And it's almost like a snowball rolling downhill as it gathers more snow as it goes, and it goes, and it, it seems bigger, feels bigger. It's all, in it that I was like, who have I become? And then once I had a hot flash and started, like as I mentioned, choosing the treatment route that I thought was right for me, it was mind blowing as to the difference. So
I would also say I call it, it's within that realm of negative thinking where you're always doing the circular thinking, and I find that that's often quite common for women that are going through this too, where it's like you're constantly thinking, or you're constantly trying to figure something out, and just being within that present moment means everything when you can do it.
Yeah. And that re-anchoring yourself in the present moment is a very important technique, I think, for getting through this whole stage. But one of the things that I was aware of as a coach, just thinking about my own experiences, I was like, okay, I'm having these circular thoughts, right? As you talked about, you kind of just are always thinking about something as trying to sort things out. And I realized I'm kind of imprisoning myself. Like that's a choice I'm making.
Right.
And,
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah. That's one of the reasons. And, when we met for the podcast, I talked about different types of cardio exercise. And for me, riding my bicycle is my road bike specifically is my number one go-to mental therapy, that I can do it for long periods of time. In that we talked about zone 2 cardio, and it really, as I look back before I got treatment, it like saved me over the last 10 years, honestly. And plus it's great. And I live in a beautiful place where I can do it all the time and it's safe. But yeah, it's like I put myself in a prison and I would just keep going around and going around.
Did you find that your taste in food changed too? It happened for me, and that's the weirdest thing.
Well, one of the things that I've decided is that my metabolic health changed as my hormone levels changed. Despite living what I would call a healthy lifestyle, I'm active at least 3 times a week, sometimes 5, sometimes 7, depending on the season. I make most of my own meals from ingredients. I'm not really, I feel, I could say with confidence, I've been doing it right. However, my ability to process sugar changed dramatically. And I think that's part of the reason I gained so much weight in my midsection, at least part. And I noticed my cravings trending towards carbohydrates. And also seeing a connection between my emotions and food cravings. So kind of seeing that food noise in your head of like, how hungry am I? What did I plant? I need more food? Did I have breakfast? Like, you're just thinking about food all the time. And I think there's an emotional component to it, for me, at least. And that has
For a lot
changed
of people.
for me. That has changed for
Mm-hmm.
me. Since I've started getting treatment, since I've pursued different nutrition focus with my macronutrients. And it's pretty shocking, actually.
How was it shocking?
Because I felt super functional in my life as a fitness coach, as a ski instructor, mountain bike skills coach. And when I did a bit of a nutritional intervention and shifted my macronutrients to more high fat, moderate protein, and low carbohydrate, just to kind of, get off carbs, if you will, for a period of time and watch what
Mm-hmm.
happened. The food noise turned off within 48 hours.
That's pretty amazing.
It was really shocking to me because I realized, and that the food noise was gone, and I was confidently doing things from an activity level that I would never do before, like ever, without being okay. I'm gonna quick have a preparation drink before I go on that bike ride, or I'm gonna have this kind of a breakfast and this before I go out for like a 4-hour hike. It just changed the anxiety level in me, and that's when I was like, it has to all be connected.
It is. It is. That's why I'm really big on the mind-body connection when I'm talking with people when it comes to mood, just in general, because think about it, lack of sleep. If you don't sleep well, you tend to be not in a good mood during the day, well, maybe not you,
Yeah.
but, people tend to be that way. So, so
Agree.
in regards to, so there is that connection that's there, right?
Mhm.
So I found, like, for myself with, I don't know where I'm at. I don't know if I'm in menopause or perimenopause. I think I'm somewhere in between,
Mhm. Mhm.
and which I know sounds strange.
Mm-mm.
Um, but what I found surprising is that foods that I used to enjoy, I don't like them anymore. Like, or they taste different now.
Mhm.
And the only thing that makes sense to me is going through the menopause piece.
Mhm.
That my body's changing, my hormones are changing, and things of
Mhm.
that nature. So, yeah.
It's an interesting moment in Western medicine because I think, as you mentioned, there's a brighter light being shined on
Hmm.
menopause, perimenopause, treatments, choices, lifestyle choices, etc. However, there's so much still unknown,
Right.
particularly creating a reliable way or having a reliable way to know where someone is at in their transition. um, and it's fascinating, the wide range of symptoms that can carry on for 10 years while someone's going from perimenopause to menopause. So it's one of those things that I don't know that we're going to anytime soon have this definitive way of saying, oh, you are here. Like, put a pin on the map.
I think we're a long way from it, honestly,
Mhm.
Kristen, because um, now I'm going to change the subject a little bit. I remember when I first had my daughter, right?
Mhm.
She's 16, so this was, 15 and months ago. Okay. I remember when I first had her, and um, I had to pump, right? Because I had milk, so I had to pump. And I had to pump like every couple hours, right?
Mhm.
And I remember that someone complained that I was
Mhm.
going to the bathroom too
Mhm.
often to pump. Now they didn't know. I mean, yes, I did finally say it was for pumping, but they didn't know. I could have been doing some other things, you know. But anyway, with that being said, with that being said, it just
Mhm.
shows how not under how far we still have to go.
Mm,
You see what I mean? Like
I do.
it just seems like we have so far to go when it comes to um, even being compassionate towards others who are going through
Mhm.
transitions within their health. You know, and you know, we're talking about women, but a lot of times women feel like there's something like, you know, I get clients that come in my office and it's something biological that's happening within your body. It's
Mhm.
nothing wrong with you, but because of the messages that they're hearing around them, they
Mhm.
think, like you mentioned, they're broken and something's wrong with
Mhm.
them, which
Mhm.
impacts their mental health. And I
Mhm.
find that quite sad that we're not as understanding to or showing compassion to one another
Mhm.
because of some of the physical things we're going through. Like there's nothing wrong with us.
Mhm.
We're just our body is just going through a transition and there's nothing wrong with that. So
It's true. I hope that corporations will begin to look at this and that as more information becomes available on symptoms, duration, onset, all of these kinds of things, that maybe on a corporate level, there can be a call to action to
right.
anticipate the potential negative impact on vital parts of their team as women are going through this transition, whether that's access to information or some other kind of creative thoughts about accommodation during this time. Um, I keep going back to you don't know what you don't know until
Hmm.
you realize you don't know it. And I
Right.
feel we're in that as a country, we're kind of in that zone
I think so
of
too.
yeah, of and particularly for women. And as you said, uh, women think that something is wrong with them. As a coach, I feel like that's just a result of the environment that they've been in. I'm
I
I
agree.
think as beings, if we knew, if we anticipated, we would understand this is a lens that's changing how we view everything that's happening around us. And we would have more compassion for ourselves and also probably have a different opinion about, um, how we're doing once we found ourselves in that position.
You mentioned that there was an uptick for you of anxiety. Can you share
Mhm.
a little bit about that in this
100%.
stage?
You talked about it. For me, I'll share my experience. You talked about it a moment ago. You find yourself just constantly thinking.
Hmm.
And, as a coach who interacts with people frequently, I consider myself a problem solver. And
Right.
that's always been a skill, an asset, if you will.
Hmm.
And I was constantly engaged in thought about situations, people, problems, things that happened in the past. That's, I think, a very telling indication. I would kind of catch myself being like, well, what are we doing here? Why are we thinking about this particular moment in your life? Yeah, maybe it was traumatic, or maybe it was high conflict with someone that I cared about. But it's almost that separation where you see yourself, and I was like, okay, that's interesting. So I think I had thought my capacity to really focus on a subject and think about solutions was an asset, which it is. But as I went through perimenopause and had, maybe pitfalls or potholes, however you want to think about it, and stuff that was happening in my life, it was like I was just constantly involved in thought. The food noise for me was just a modern representation of that, like a recent, I should say, representation of anxious thinking for me. Generally thinking about things I could not control, had not happened yet. And, when social media starts pushing advertisements to you for like a t-shirt that says, wait a second, let me overthink that. Like, okay, this is interesting. I've become I'm looking up content on anxiety or calming my mind or, figuring out ways to silence my mind, which I still use today. I think they're wonderful techniques. I'm a big fan of binaural beats and trying to sit in somewhat of a meditative state before I go to bed, just to kind of like clear the decks, end my day, and get ready for sleep. But those are those big indicators that made me realize I'm thinking way more than I did. And it made me feel less effective or less with it, less sharp. And I kind of mourned the person that I thought I used to be. Because for me, my own judgment of the anxious thoughts I was having was a judgment that I'm less confident, less competent as a coach, maybe, or just in general in my life. That was my judgment on myself. And that was also an indicator that I was just spending too much time thinking about things I had no control of.
I found for myself, I had to become more intentional. Like things I had taken for granted before, I had to make myself, okay, I'm going to be more, and time blocking has been my friend, because I know it sounds anal, but because I could be everywhere and still be there. It was the weirdest thing. And so I didn't really have those kind of challenges before. And, being mindful, practicing mindfulness, practicing being grounded, focusing on my presence and enjoying the moment of where I'm at. All those things that I talk about, I practice them for myself because, especially during this phase of my life, I found that this podcast was a more personal podcast because it's something I'm going through, And it's weird because I've been going through it for a few years, when I really think about it. Like it's not like something just popped up, but I've been going through it for a while, So, and in the back of my mind, sometimes I think, oh, I can't wait for this to be over. But I've learned so much about myself going through this. I don't know if you know what I mean? Like, I don't know if I think once this season or this time passes, I might miss it, which sounds strange because I've learned so much about myself.
Yeah, it's an era of discovery, I think. And it's also empowering, can be empowering. I think if a woman chooses to, as you mentioned, kind of be in the moment, rise to it, learn about it, embrace it, if you look back at the decades of our lives, and they each have kind of their own unique message of hope and empowerment, I feel like this decade or era we have sufficient experience to really feel empowered and strong. It's one thing to maybe enter your 30s, coming out of your 20s, and all of the potential things that could go great for you then. And then, 40s means something else to women. But 50s and 60s are like, I have a whole list of experiences behind me now. So when I get to a point where I've reached an opinion and I'm confident, like, look out, like it's almost like we're more convinced about how powerful we could be as a person. So, I think it's a very unique time
I
for
remember
what we
when I
can take
turned,
from it.
I remember when I turned 50. So yesterday was my birthday. I'm
Oh my gosh,
54.
happy birthday. Happy
Thank you.
birthday.
Thank you.
Great.
And
Awesome.
when I turned 50, I was so excited to turn 50. You know what I mean? Like, I was excited about 40. I was excited about 30. I wasn't really all that excited about 20. I was more excited about 21 than I was 20 for obvious reasons. So, you know,
But do
but
know.
when, yeah, but when I turned 50, I was like, man, you can't tell me nothing. I am 50. There's like an attitude or something around it.
Agreed. Yeah.
And so I totally get what you're saying when you talk about, when you're in your early 50s. It's like it's what I didn't anticipate after turning 50, I would say, and I'm still in this phase, so I don't want to make it sound like it's over, the changes that we're talking about. You know what I mean? I didn't anticipate that it would be as pronounced, right? But I still wouldn't like the me today is far more comfortable in my own skin. I love myself more. I'm more grounded. I'm great. I won't say great, but I'm better than what I was before when it comes to boundaries and knowing what type of relationships, romantic, family, working relationships. I think we have a great working relationship. You know what I mean? So all those
It's so
things,
true.
all those things, like I have a better hold on that, or a better identity of what I want, and I gotta say, if I wasn't going through this, I don't know if I'd still be in that place. You know what I mean? Because this has made me become a lot more intentional about what I want and where I'm going. I'm sure a lot of other women could probably say the same thing too.
Yeah, I love what you said about boundaries. Because I think that's a great encapsulation of this firmer ground, kind of this, stronger footing we have with our own power potential as a human. I think that's unique in this age range. And I really think, women are extraordinary.
I think so too.
If you just think about all of the different ways we contribute, create, part of this human experience, this is just another amazing thing that women do, but we just don't know a lot about it yet. So it's kind of happening. It's a little louder now. It's it's a little bit louder as a subject. Menopause, the emotional impacts, perimenopause, things to expect. But I agree that what a powerful time it can be. And I'm so glad to have met you and been able to get some of this stuff, recorded and put out there, because I think the more women understand that this is universal, that we are all, experiencing something. I recently did a meetup with some women, And to get it started, I just said, let's put in the chat, what's been the biggest frustration for you over the last 5, 6, 7, 10 years, wherever you are. And which we just kept talking. And then we looked at the chat. I said, okay, everybody just read the chat for a second and hold up, the number of things that resonates with you. And this group of women who didn't know each other realized that they had kind of all been experiencing the same thing. And I have hope. I feel very hopeful about the future for women, particularly for younger women, women in their 30s, or, they're still in family planning mode. And as we talked about in the podcast, I really feel like all the work we're doing, we can leverage that experience to help future generations so that it's just much smoother.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I agree. How can someone, we already talked about it in the podcast, but so you guys, the podcast aired a couple months ago. Like we did the taping a couple months ago. So Kristin and we haven't spoken in like 7 weeks, I think, or something like that.
I believe so. Yeah.
So we're like reconnecting. Y'all just are listening to the show, but we
Yeah.
but this is the first time in a few weeks that we've met. So organically, do you have anything coming up that and I'll put it in the live, I'll edit the live and add the information too. Do you have anything coming up that you want people to know about? Is there something?
Yes, absolutely. People can definitely connect with me on Instagram. The Instagram handle is Menopause Empower. You can also go to my website, inthismoment.vip. But a very exciting thing that I'm going to do next week, I just did my first one a couple weeks ago as a tryout, is I'm hosting a coffee chat, kind of similar to this. It's just 45 minutes of women coming together. We're going to have one subject each time that we just kind of discuss openly, whether it's physical wellness, emotional wellness, that mind-body connection, or just the value of social connection, which I think is so important for women in this zone. And if people want to find out about the coffee chat, which is completely free, they can go to Menopause Empower on Instagram, or they could email me at coachk@inthismoment.vip. Any of those things, I think, would lead them to me. And I'm just trying to create more of an open dialogue about this. I love hearing other women's stories. Honestly, I find that not just empowering, but it kind of adds to how I contemplate my choices as a coach in this zone.
Right.
And I do think women have one of our superpowers is our kindness and our ability to help others. And I find this space as a great opportunity to help others with our own story. And so, yeah, I'd love to hear from anyone that wants to join the coffee chat next Tuesday. So thanks for asking.
Well, I will make sure to include this in the Elisha Space Podcast Club private Facebook group, as well as in the live notes so that people can have access to that. So I'll make sure to add that as well. And, I just think we're pretty amazing as women in general. And the thing that I would say too is that this is something that transcends cultures. It transcends languages, because if you're a female, you're going to go through this.
I 100% agree.
Around it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so it's not just you going through it. It's how you travel through it. I think if that's I think if that's the takeaway, that's the takeaway, at least for me, is how am I going to travel through this? Am I going to travel through this with showing love and kindness to myself and others? Or am I going to, allow things to get the best of me to a degree? So, I want to thank you for
Like it.
joining us. Yeah, I want to thank you for joining us on this live. Um, and I will make sure I have your information out there. If there's one takeaway you want everyone to have, what would that takeaway be, Kristin?
I say reflection.
Mm-hmm.
I think trying to find some space, some time to reflect on your life and how you feel about it and all the different ways that that engenders a response. And I would look around your life in different ways and try to just assess, like, you know, connecting with yourself and assessing, you know, am I feeling discontent? Am I feeling an increase in anxiety? Like, you know, do any of these things that Elisha and Kristin are talking about, can I look back in the last 10 years and go, oh, you know what, that kind of does. I remember that, having that response to that situation, and taking an inventory, you know,
Right.
and then what you do with that inventory is up to you. We have as women, we have a lot of choices. It's easy to get informed about what those are and then go from there. But kind of jump into the driver's seat, put the car in gear, and be willing to do kind of an inventory of where you're at with your life, and then make your choice from there.
I think that's a great takeaway. Great takeaway. One more takeaway, and then we're going to go, is I would say make sure to also, when you go to your doctor, I would say see about getting a full panel done.
We could talk for hours about how to manage your physician. I will just say, in the most positive, my dog's trying to get on camera here. I will say in the most positive way possible, okay, that you have to be your own advocate.
Absolutely.
You have to be informed. And I'm not saying this to mistrust doctors. I love science. But as we talked about in the podcast, you have to know what your health outcome goals are, and you need to be able to communicate them to the physician. And if you feel you're being dismissed, then you need to broaden your healthcare team.
I agree completely.
It's like they work for you. So yeah, understanding what the full panel includes, I think, is a great step. And just don't feel like you have to accept feeling badly. We deserve to feel good.
I agree.
Yeah.
All right, so we're going to get jumping because we've got others. I don't want to say we got other stuff to do, but we do have other things on our calendar. I hope you guys enjoyed. Our live. Kristin and I may collaborate with other things as well as it organically comes up. And I just wish you guys well, wholeness, happiness, restoration, all those things. Let that be in your life, within yourself, in the relationship you have with yourself, as well as the relationship you have with others. So be well. Talk to you guys later.
Thank you.